Birders, birding sites and birds in South Africa for tourist guides, presented by Anthony Paton. Many people around the world know very little about South Africa, and to a significant number of people it is a sports-mad country where you would find such notable landmarks as Cape Town and the Kruger National Park. South African tourist guides for whom this video has been made know very well that there is much more to the country than those few facts, but many guides don't know a lot about the international ecotourism community in general and birders in particular. If you think that international birders are a bunch of people who are fast asleep, then you are showing as much prejudice and ignorance as the stereotype tourists who are described above. The international birding community contains people that are highly motivated, highly educated. Whilst they want to explore the world and observe new species, they are also highly concerned about committed conservation and broad education. In 2015, the 13-year-old Maya Rose Craig, popularly known as Bird Girl, became the youngest person ever to record 5,000 species. In 2021, at the age of 19, she became one of the youngest people in the United Kingdom to receive an honorary doctorate for her efforts in educating and uniting people from all backgrounds to work for environmental solutions and social equality. Dr. Maya Rose Craig exemplifies a new generation of tourists that are critical, imaginative, and adventurous. What is it that attracts these affluent and astute, driven and demanding ornithological aristocrats to South Africa? Birds, of which there are approximately 10,000 species, are the most widely distributed creatures in the world. South Africa has 762 bird species, over 7% of the world's species in under 1% of the world's land mass. South Africa ranks 30th in the world for the number of species. Most of the countries with more species are equatorial or in the tropics at least. South Africa is a country which comprises of highly variable habitats, very dry regions, succulent karoo, nama karoo, grassland, savanna including broadleafed and thornfelt vegetation ranging from extremely open through to very dense, forested areas such as around Knysna, high mountains like the Drakensberg, and a variety of coastal habitats, including estuaries and coastal lake systems. These diverse habitats support a correspondingly broad range of bird species. On top of this, South Africa is accessible and has fantastic transport and accommodation infrastructure, making it a magnet for mega birders and serious ecotourists, a country really worth exploring. So let's go on a tour of the provinces and look at some of the birders, the birding locations, and the species that each of them supports. The Western Cape is home to some astonishing birds and bird gurus. The aptly named Fancy Peacock produced the definitive work on southern African pipits by the time he was 25. He has produced a book on the little brown jobs or LBJs, as well as another book on the equally difficult waders. Recently, he has produced a few books making birds more interesting and fun for kids. Architect Trevor Hardiker is chairperson of the National Rarities Committee and has recorded more birds than anyone else in the country or region. You might meet either of these distinguished birders at the West Coast National Park, which is particularly famous for waders, such as the bar-tailed godwit, and numerous others, of course. Wedged between the city of Cape Town and the iconic Table Mountain is the Kirstenbosch National Botanical Gardens, where you might find a parliament of owls, spotted eagle owls to be precise. But during the day you will probably more easily encounter the Cape sugarbird, an icon of the fynbos, or some of the other spectacular residents such as the orange-breasted sunbird or even the southern double-collared sunbird. At Boulders and Betty's Bay, nesting African penguins are a popular attraction. But if you are a bit adventurous, you might go up the hill at Royals to try and track down the elusive Cape rock jumper. Even further along the east coast, De Hoop Nature Reserve is an ideal location to enjoy the striking African oyster catcher. If you're ever in Oudtshoorn, be sure to connect with the common ostrich, which was farmed widely in the area when the feather boa, or even just the common feather duster, was all the rage. Of course, every tour guide knows the Kango Caves are a major non-avian attraction of this area. The Eastern Cape has some remarkable sights and a vibrant birding community. Amongst the rising stars of the province are young birdlife SA guides Unam Dlumani and Sonwabili Dlaza. Recently trained in a relatively small portion of the province, they are hoping to spread their wings and expand their horizons to the rest of the province and the country too, if possible. Hogsback is a stunning area where, with skill and a bit of luck, they might find you the range-restricted and endangered Cape parrot. Mountain Zebra National Park is a more arid area where the birds encountered might include the majestic jackal buzzard. Mboichi is a recommended site for locating the elusive and seasonally nomadic mangrove kingfisher. Northern Cape Province is vast in area and largely sparsely populated. Vincent Parker is a citizen scientist with the second South African bird atlasing project, commonly referred to as SABAP2. He collects data by making extensive lists in small geographic areas which are 5 minutes of a degree by 5 minutes of a degree. These are known as pentads. This voluntary research, much of it done on a bicycle, has made Vincent one of the top experts on birds and birding sites of the Northern Cape. The Kalahari Transfrontier Park is at the junction of South Africa, Botswana and Namibia. This arid and hostile environment is an ideal place for viewing and comparing sand grouse species. These birds successfully raise their chicks in very arid places by flying to waterholes and returning to their nestlings with water in their breast feathers. The Comfers Dam, north of Kimberley, is the most important site in the region for breeding flamingos. Flamingo pairs stay together for their entire lives. Some couples have been together for 50 years or more. The beta-carotene in their crustacean and plankton diet gives the flamingos their pink hue. The greater flamingo has a bicolored bill with a pink base and a black tip. The bill of the lesser flamingo is completely dark. Makala National Park to the south of Kimberley is an excellent place to see the sociable weavers that build palatial communal nests. The pygmy falcon is usually a squatter in these massive mansions and makes its neighbors nervous because, although it usually dines on reptiles and insects, it is not above taking the odd sociable weaver chick just to add insult to injury. The Free State province comprises a lot of grassland and transformed grassland, wetlands and more montane habitat in the east. Around Vrede you might see an ant-eating chat or an African hoopoe, apparently listening to the radio and having the time of its life. The Memel area is well known for fantastic wetland birding and good adjacent avian variety. Dolly Kanya is a BirdLife SA local guide who might show you the northern black curran, secretary bird, southern bald ibis, or the magnificent grey-crowned crane. Golden Gate is a scenically spectacular location which features a unique vulture hide. Local guides Mpho Motaung and Padi Mashapani would love to accompany you there in search of the majestic bearded vulture, sometimes referred to locally as the lamachaya. The KwaZulu-Natal province has very extensive habitat diversity and a correspondingly impressive variety of bird species. Umlalazi Wildlife Park is the first location north of Durban where you could reasonably expect to see the iconic palm nut vulture. Cape Vidal is part of the amazing Ismangaliso World Heritage Site, where Bheki Nyandeni and Pindi Nshangasi have fantastic local knowledge and experience and may point out the great white pelican, the woolly-necked stork, the African open bull, or the whimbrel. With time and effort, they may even help you locate the sought-after green malkoa, which skulks warily in the coastal thickets. The Dlinza Forest Aerial Boardwalk is home to some spectacular specials, which you will find more easily with the help of local guiding legend Junior Gabela. The Ongoya Forest also supports the highly sought-after eastern bronze-nape pigeon, previously known as the Delagog's pigeon, and the elusive green barbet. BirdLife SA guides who are experts in this area include Nomusa Ntuli, Sakumuzi Mhlongo, Mana Ntuli, and Tabile Kozwayo. Ndumo Game Reserve is another birding jewel, which was home to the now retired bird guiding legend Sonto Tembe, remembered for his entertaining rendering of bird calls and decades of passionate guiding. Whilst Nearguard's sunbird and the rosy-throated longclaw are amongst the most sought-after local species, you may also see a lanner falcon, or if you are lucky, a mating pair of African rails. Mpumalanga is another very diverse province with grassland, montane areas and a variety of lowland bushveld types. Seeing or even hearing the African fish eagle is always memorable and reminiscent of the lowveld, but to actually photograph this magnificent raptor or see it calling is especially rewarding. As with most raptors, the larger bird is the female and the smaller one is the male. The lower pitched call is from the female, whilst the high pitched response is the voice of the male. Wackerstroom in the south of the province is surrounded by high-quality wetlands as well as a variety of grassland habitats. Lucky Ngwenya and Norman Ngube are sought-after local guides. David Nkosi, who was a bird guide in the area for years, is now no longer actively guiding. The feast of species that you might see on a summer's bird outing includes a mer falcon, red-footed falcon and Dennett's bustard. With good guiding, perseverance and a bit of luck, you may even have the fortune of locating the Boerter's lark. In the north of the province, such as around Maripskop or Mount Sheba, there are some remnants of indigenous forest which are home to the striking but secretive Nerina trogon, named by French explorer Francois Le Vaillant after his legendary koi mistress, and one of the few common English bird species names that refers to a woman. The Kruger National Park is a vast game reserve which runs along South Africa's border with Mozambique. The portion of the park south of the Olifants River is in Mpumalanga, whilst the area north of the Olifants is in Limpopo province. But in this video, it will be treated as though it is South Africa's 10th province, due to its huge area and unique habitats and corresponding impressive number of birding specials. Peter Lawson and Frank Mabasu are featured here as specialists associated with the park, but there are dozens of other really respectable and experienced bird guides who have had long and passionate associations with the park. Whilst the Kruger National Park is widely marketed for the big five animals and indeed has many lions, leopards, buffaloes, rhinos and elephants, it also features the Kruger Big Six birds. The first of these is the saddle-billed stork, in which females have a yellow ring around the eye, whilst males have yellow wattles at the base of their bills. The second is the lappet-faced vulture, the largest and most robust of the southern African vulture species, which arrives last at kills and specializes in eating bones and sinew. The third Kruger Big Six bird is the martial eagle, a large and robust bird which specializes in killing small mammals and large reptiles like monitor lizards and puff adders. The fourth of the Kruger Big Six birds is the Kori bustard, a candidate with its similarly sized relatives as the heaviest extant flying bird in the world. The fifth is the striking ground hornbill, which, true to its name, spends a fair amount of time on the ground, but nests in very tall trees, or even more often on high cliffs. Finally, the Pell's fishing owl is a slightly reclusive bird dubbed the flying pumpkin on account of its overall orangey color, which is sought after along the large rivers of the Kruger National Park. The park also has an impressive range of other birds which are hard to find elsewhere in South Africa, such as the square-tailed nightjar, the white-crowned lapwing which frequents the larger rivers, especially in the north of the park, and the African finfoot, especially conspicuous along the Sabi River, particularly near Skukuza. Other good species to spot in the northern Kruger National Park include the dusky lark, the musk swallow, Meave starling, also called the lesser blue-eared starling, the yellow-billed oxpecker, and the lemon-breasted canary. Of course, it goes without saying that there are also a vast range of other species that are also widespread elsewhere in the bushveld, such as the Varberg's eagle, named after the Swedish explorer who was killed by an elephant in Botswana. The Limpopo province has a variety of amazing sights, such as the site where Michael Kamaka used to find Taita falcon for travelers traversing the Strydom Tunnel. Taita falcon is possibly the rarest bird in South Africa, and so when this nest was disused, it was a huge blow to Michael's ability to support himself as a birding guide. However, if you do plan to stop near the tunnel, he will still gladly track down mountain wagtail and other similarly difficult localized species. Distinguished bird guides further to the north include Christopher Netonze, who operates mainly around Chappies, and Samson Mulaudzi, who covers the Thohoyandou area, where the blue-spotted dove is his local special. Other species that might lure you into a visit to the northern routes include the nomadic and somewhat evasive dwarf bittern, the African pygmy goose, the lesser moorhen, and Allen's gallinule. The Northwest Province also supports remarkable diversity. It is fair to say that Barber's Pan is a fairly underrated site where you may encounter the great crested grebe, the western osprey, as well as an impressive variety of waders and warblers, particularly in the summer months. Khaswani Mountain Reserve on the fringes of Rustenburg is a delightful birding site which sees regular visits from Temminck's courser and has a good spread of bushveld birds such as the grey-headed bushshrike and great opportunities to view species such as the cardinal woodpecker and the bearded woodpecker. A woodpecker's tongue can be up to 10 centimeters long depending on the species. It stores its tongue by folding it up and inserting it into a specific hole at the back of the neck, where it may be sandwiched between the skull and the skin. The tongue is used to extract borer beetles and other insect larvae from holes and crevices beneath the bark of the trees which they frequent. The tree pipit is a Khaswani special, which usually only visits the reserve for a few weeks in February or March. Local conservation officer Bernard Tabani has been of great assistance in helping birders locate this annual highlight. The crested barbet is another easily spotted resident. Pilanesberg National Park is arguably the star birding attraction of the Northwest, and it has become renowned as a reliable place for good leopard sightings, but the other big five animals are also regularly seen. Birding highlights include the red-billed oxpecker, the violet-eared waxbill, the blue-cheeked bee-eater, the secretary bird, the shikra, and the great sparrow, as well as a vast chorus of equally interesting and diverse birds. This undulating tour of South Africa finally ends up in Gauteng, the smallest and most densely populated province in the country. Talking about a massive population, did you know that the red-billed quelea is the most common wild bird on the planet, with an estimated adult breeding population of 1.5 billion pairs? It is primarily found in sub-Saharan Africa, and a single flock can contain thousands of birds. It is one of the bird species which has the greatest variety of plumages. There are non-breeding females, non-breeding males, breeding females, and two forms of breeding males. But of course, there is much more than red-billed quelias in Gauteng. Raymond Rampola is known as the Birdman of Soweto, and he combines experiences in nature, culture, and adventure, and enjoys both cycling and birding. Raymond's favorite sites are Morivale, Suikerbosrand, and the Walter Sisulu National Botanical Gardens. One of the cool birds of Morivale is the black heron, which has an interesting fishing strategy, creating an umbrella with its wings which attract fish and other small aquatic creatures, which it then ambushes for lunch. Raymond has introduced a wide variety of people to wetlands like Maury Vale and Abe Bailey, including other tour guides and tour operators. At Walter Sisulu, the star attractions are a breeding pair of Varroa's eagles. They usually lay 2 eggs in winter, but the firstborn chick usually kills the younger sibling, either by outcompeting it for food or even by direct attack. In summer, Walter Sisulu is also a great place to see the red-chested cuckoo, which lays its eggs in the nests of unsuspecting hosts, like the Cape robin chat, or the beautiful bokmakeri, one of Gauteng's iconic birds. Suikerbosrand Nature Reserve is in the south of Gauteng, near Heidelberg. It is the home to several species which are special in terms of general birds in Gauteng, such as the grey-winged francolin, sentinel rock thrush, and yellow bishop, as well as some local habitat specialists like striped pipit. It contains some species pairs that are highly allopatric, such as the dark-capped bulbul and the red-eyed bulbul. It is also a popular venue for hikers and cyclists. The Dinokeng Game Reserve is known as the closest Big Five reserve to the Gauteng major urban centres and is malaria-free, a great plus to many tourists. BirdLife SA guide Bongani Ngwenya is resident in the reserve, whilst veteran DGR guide Peter Kanya also has a particular interest in birds and birding. The star birding attraction is a breeding pair of martial eagles, whilst secretary bird and blue crane have been spotted quite regularly. The reserve has a list of around 400 species and a vibrant and enthusiastic birding community that run an annual birding challenge and several annual birding events. The Dinokeng Game Reserve is an excellent location to watch, photograph and film typical bushveld birds and is well worth a visit by all serious and aspirant birders. After this lightning tour of South Africa, it's easy to appreciate the diversity of habitat, diet, feeding strategy, anatomy, and a host of other characteristics of the impressive range of bird species in this country. Presenting birds to tourists is a lot more difficult than it may at first appear. Following certain guidelines can reduce your chances of embarrassment when you have guests who are serious birders. Firstly, always ask your guests in advance of their arrival if they are birders. Secondly, try and establish how experienced they really are. If someone has a life list of over 1,000 species, or a list in the region of over 500 species, or 20 years of birding experience, you should seriously consider not guiding them yourself. If it's not possible to involve a top expert on your tour, the next best thing you can do is to ensure that you make as much use of the local guides as possible. Local birding guides may not be the best guides in the world or the country, but they are almost always the best guides at their local patch. They know the local habitats, bird species and bird movements as well as or better than anyone else. On top of that, they know the local roads, the local paths, the local animals, the local infrastructure and the local people. Engaging a local bird guide is one of the best things you can do for a tour to a local patch. Try it. The chances are that you will realize how awesome these people are, and you will never visit that place again without engaging them. Let's thrive and work together to make South Africa continue to grow as one of the world's most fantastic birding destinations.